Welcome to Your Future in Sales and Marketing, a podcast that helps you make great career decisions to get the most out of your career journey. We'll introduce you to the AXR network of established senior leaders and a handpicked group of future aspiring leaders who have it all in front of them. You'll learn what it's like in the top job and how to get there. Your hosts from AXR's specialist sales and marketing recruitment team will also land bonus episodes for you on how to work with recruiters, write a resume, and smash an interview, as well as our very popular market updates. It's the podcast that has it all. You can't get this career advice anywhere else. Welcome to the Future Leader Series podcast hosted by AXR Recruitment and Search. So in this series, we're joined by professionals across sales, marketing, and category who are in the middle of their career journeys and tracking towards the top job. So we'll dive into how they've arrived at this point in their careers, what they're implementing to accelerate their personal and professional development. And we'll touch on other things as well, mental health, how they're balancing work and life, and also what's happening more broadly in the market as well. So my name's Andrew. I'm a sales and category specialist at AXR, and I'm joined by my colleague Amelia, who specializes in brand and marketing. And today we're very excited to be joined by Matthew May. Matthew is head of Woolworths at Inghams Group. Matthew, how are you?
Good, thanks. Feeling good for Friday. Thanks for having me.
Very good. No, nice to have you here. So what we'll jump into first is how you got to this point. So talk us through your career journey.
All good. So top line, I did a agricultural economics degree at Sydney Uni. So kind of always had a passion for that ag industry. And when I left uni, I worked at Lion, probably kind of really stepped into that, customer service from kind of the ground up. So really understanding, the sales core, what's important to the customer and kind of managing that back. So got a good grasp of that piece. Had an opportunity to go into a vendor replenishment planner, which was great to kind of, be that glue between the customer, supplier, and you kind of have that funny kind of straddling role, which is great fun and quite dynamic. Then an opportunity came up to join Inghams, and probably really kind of felt more of my passion, especially that ag industry, and kind of from there gone through the traditional sales path of account exec, account manager, business manager, and now lucky enough to head up the Woolies team. So yeah, 8.5 years, seeing the business change from, family owned to private equity, and now we're publicly listed. Real kind of cultural shift along the journey, but we're in a really good place at the moment and continue to drive a great culture and bring people and good times to life.
It's a very unique experience to have all of those ownership structures in one business. Quite often people have to make moves to experience all of that. So your role as head of Woolies, so for anyone listening who's, they're on the way up within sales, maybe they're a national account manager and they see that sort of head of level as being their next move. Talk us through, what does that role entail and what does your day-to-day look like?
It's a good question. I think it's a lot about the people I find now. So probably moving more from execution to kind of people leadership strategy. So I think there's a real element of, really building the team up and giving the team the skills to kind of perform the role. So I think that's probably a big part of my role. A big part of is also, not just the next 3, 6, we're kind of moving out more to the 12 months, 3 to 5 year plans, having that involvement of kind of setting direction versus execution. But there's also a key part, like working a fresh business. So having the ability still to kind of get in with the team, work really cross-functionally to get, the outcome for our customer, which is, great service, good cost, and, great communication. So there's a fine balance of that. So it's more short, medium, and long term. But yeah, it's a dynamic role and enjoying it.
And that move into leadership, it's not the easiest for everybody, because the irony is you get promoted to a leadership role because you're technically very good at the job that you're doing. And then all of a sudden you're trusting others to do that job while you help them. So the irony is people are promoted into leadership roles because they're very good executionally in the job that they're in. And then all of a sudden they find themselves in a role where they're not the ones doing the executing, they're managing the people that are. How have you found that transition into leadership? What have you found challenging?
It's probably just stepping away, I find. Like at the start, I was really trying to manage the person and the process, but now I've kind of changed that to more lead, and I kind of give people the skills, I think the process, and then let them crack on with it. I found the start was probably a bit too much. I was still trying to kind of get into the weeds. And so it's the ability to really, trust the process and let the team kind of flourish, which I find, is part of the leadership, and even having that, 360 loop of, how's it all going? Like, what do you need from me? So probably that in terms of the development and asking those like curious questions. I think leaning into that because, leadership, it's all about, making the people and the team feel engaged and you're giving the best out of them. So I find, that's a big part of my leadership style, of that holistic health and checking in of, making sure they're really enjoying, the job and being the best person. So
yeah, good. Yeah. Good. And you mentioned being in the weeds there. You spent time as a VIP.
Yeah.
Which has always been, it's probably used to be a more common route into that national account exec role. And from speaking with people that have done it, that they really do think it was beneficial for them to spend time in that role before coming into sales. What was your experience in the VIP space, and how do you feel it's benefited you longer term?
So I picked it up as a secondment role when I was at Lion. So I did a short-term stint in the beer team, went back to my old role, then another opportunity to come up in the dairy side. So the way I saw it, it's really that pivotal link between, the sales team, replenishment, and the Woolworths team. So there's like a really nice kind of Venn diagram of where you sit at there. But it's really just making sure that, you can provide information that's valuable to both parties. And it's a fine skill because, it's very objectively measured. For example, case fill, DIFOT, that's like objective measurement. So how you can kind of give communication to both parties to make sure, you're doing the best job and the best outcome. Because at the end of the day, essentially in that role, it's all about stock delivery. So like, what can you control upstream, like forecasting or, opportunities for how products getting delivered or shipped. They're things which then can feed into the outcome. So I think that was probably a skill I learned of, where's the process and kind of how you can challenge or feed into that to drive a better outcome. So,
and how you can speak the same language as supply chain when you need to engage them, which is a big part of what you do, I imagine, in your current role.
And it's like, it's not that hard, is it?
Yeah.
And from a future perspective, where's your career sort of going? What are your aspirations? You mentioned leadership is something that you're wanting to kind of develop even further. Where are you wanting to take your career sort of next?
Yeah, so I've been the head of Woolies role for now a year, so I'd love to get another year, maybe 2 under the belt to really kind of, learn some of the mistakes I've done and really embed some new process and get some wins. So I think right now I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at. It's kind of upskilling some of those areas, but down the track, like kind of 3 to 5 year, love to be a sales director role. That's kind of my ambition there. I've been in Inghams now for 8.5 years. So, it's probably looking up ahead of kind of what's next. Maybe it's outside more of a, still an FMCG, but I think maybe more branded business or kind of what other things I can do to get a more grasped experience. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
And what are you doing, or how much time are you investing in your personal and professional development at the moment? What sort of helps you to leverage and build skills?
So it's pretty robust, the process, I'd say, now at Inghams from when I started. We have gone on a cultural, journey, but I think it's just creating time and space in your week and having those check-ins. So I've recently, I guess, lent into the human synergistics framework and probably going through that process. And then, in terms of where your opportunities and the way I stepped at first, where are my weaknesses? And it's like, now it's like, okay, they're being aware of them, but really probably double clicking on your really what you're strong at as well. And then having, like a 90-day plan and building that rhythm to see, where's that improvement or opportunity. And I think that feedback loop across all internal and, external stakeholders is going to give you that uptick for, progress. So
yeah, beautiful.
And that program you're talking about, that's LSI?
Yeah,
okay. So LSI is probably a term people have heard of, but they might not know exactly what's involved. What does that LSI process look like? Just spell it out for us.
So it's a pretty, robust process of where you engage, peers, stakeholders, leaders to give you feedback around the 12, I guess, behaviors of where they see kind of culture and where that's shaping. So there's obviously blue, there's green, there's red. So ideally you want to be in more of a a blue framework, what's more human synergistic. It's collaborative. It's encouraging. Red is more the defensive and green's more passive. So it's like, I think as part of that framework, it's like where do you sit on that and where's your ideal? And probably when you do that process, you've got an ideal of where you think you're at. Then you then get feedback through that process of where you are at. So I think that's probably where you got to lean into that. I think it's being aware of it, accepting it, and then what's the action from that, because at the end of the day, it's feedback, which is a data point. So it's like, I think I'm really leaning into that to be a better leader and person, and that's been great in terms of that journey. And then working with a HR team to really have a framework of kind of how we can how I can better myself as a person and leader. But it's really leaning into some of that feedback, driving a plan from it.
Wonderful. And not only do you have an amazing job that's very stressful, but you've also got an amazing life with 2 small children at home. How do you balance everything with a 4-month-old, a 2.5-year-old, and you've got fur children as well?
Yeah, two whippets. So it's great. It's pretty dynamic. I think it's having the relationship, especially with your partner, that you can kind of divide and conquer. So it's really just a teamwork, really getting all the things done throughout the day. But if I fast forward to a 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., it's literally like all hands on deck. There's dinner getting ready, the dogs want food, there's bath time. And sometimes you look at my wife and it's like, how are we going to do this again? And it's like, then you go to bed and it's a bit restless, but it's only short term. And I think even at work, some people always say, oh, how's your sleep? And it's like, it's not great, but I think you can't get fixated on that, because at the end of the day, if you've got, children, it's like, that's the positive vibe. And there's so much challenge in the world that I think, I can deal without a bit of sleep and have 5 coffees to keep me going. So,
caffeine is key.
It's all really positive things.
I used to look at parents and go, how do they do that? And now I've got a 4-month-old and I realise that you just do it. It's as simple as that. And for your hot topic, something you'd be in a really good position to talk about with Inghams, it's the rise of private label. So tell us about that, your experience of that in recent few months.
Yeah, I think it's a trend we've definitely seen accelerate, especially in the food environment. Definitely over indexes in food grocery category, but especially over the last year, 2 years. And I think the rise of inflationary pressures, people trading down, like it's really being aware of that, I guess, within your category, and then I guess how you can shape or position that back. Within my experience, especially within the poultry industry, which really over indexes in private label, we have a really great opportunity to co-create with some of our partners of great products. And I think especially from a retailer's perspective, like their stance of private label is that their product should be superior to branded products. So I think there's a great opportunity of delivering a quality product at a great price for consumers, and there's opportunity there. I think the headwind is more as a business direction, kind of where your strategy is and how you can complement the retailer's strategy, because I think it's a trend that's going to continue to rise. I think just being aware of it and how you can position yourself, complement it.
Yeah. And from speaking with people in sales, there's generally less excitement about potentially working on private label versus branded. But what would your advice be to someone who's presented with an opportunity to work on private label in terms of the benefits it can deliver to them for their longer term career?
Yeah, I think it's probably the framework or the process. It will always be different, because you can almost switch. It's more of a tender process at times, but if you think of it also, there's still a co-creation of if you can deliver a great product for the retailer. I think even though it's not your specific brand, it's still a big part of what could be a great product. So I think if you take it the lens of, it's as much our brand as in the retailers, I think you can change your perception to still create great products and experiences, especially also with tapping into some of the resources of, marketing and that of what the big retailers offer and kind of how you can partner together to create, a great solution. So I think it's having that, mindset and tapping into all the resources around you.
Yeah. Fantastic. what advice would you give to someone who's on a similar path to you, but a little bit earlier in their journey and really looking to maximize their longer term potential?
I would create the similarity of you can train for a marathon, and it's like you can almost map out your development or where you want to go in little sprints. So I think having an action plan or a race plan, if it's 90 days or 6 months, having what that plan is and probably checking in regularly. So I think you can get very caught in the BAU and the running, of the day to day, and probably losing sight of that bigger picture and even stopping time to reflect. So I think, having more concise, actionable plans that are measured more frequently, I think that can deliver success and can even get you to check in of like, actually, I'm not that happy here. And then, pivot on that versus continue to stay in that cycle. So that'd be my view on that.
Great advice.
Great advice. Good one to finish on. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast from AXR Recruitment and Search. We're passionate about helping you get the most out of your sales and marketing career. Keep listening as we bring you more career insights and advice from Australia's inspiring sales and marketing leaders. See you next time on Your Future in Sales and Marketing.